Hello everyone, the Instant Camera Guy here. If you've been wondering why I've been taking so long to repair clients' cameras and put out videos, well, it is because of absolute nonsense repair jobs as I've got in front of me. In this video today, I need to vent because these cameras have absolutely done my head in over the last few days. They're still not finished. And I want to go into why that's the case. And for anyone watching, this is going to be a video where I'm going to drop a lot of wisdom. There's going to be a lot of really good advice, good lessons learned here, just like good general knowledge, which is like super important for anyone to know. And what I ask of you is some of the bits of wisdom that I drop in this video, I need you guys to spread the message. Every single time you see the issues that I'm about to go over mentioned in forums, every time you see the Polaroid 690, I need you to spread this information as wide as possible. Because quite frankly, some of the problems that I'm dealing with these two cameras, I am just sick and tired of, and it's very, very frustrating. Now, this will no doubt be a long video. So what I wanted to mention, if you guys ever like following my videos and, you know, like I know that a lot of my followers just simply listen to my videos in the background. I wanted to show you guys, if you put the Brave internet browser on your phone, like they have it for iPhone, Android, if you install the Brave browser and you go on YouTube within the Brave browser and you play a video... Some of the frames that I have here are special editions. So back in the day, Impossible Project did something called... Right? It works just like regular YouTube. You can make the app, you can make the screen full. But Brave browser not only disables ads on YouTube, which is awesome, you get no interruptions, but it also lets you turn the screen off. Check this out. PX680 American Woods. One thing that I really remember about this is from 2012. Is that wild or what? So yeah, if you guys found that little tip helpful, yeah, if you listen to me like on your phone using the Brave browser, you just pull up YouTube within the browser, you can listen to any video on YouTube, including music, ad-free and as if it was a podcast. How freaking cool is that? Now, that will mean that I get no ad revenue from this video or any videos that you choose to do that with. So if you like that tip and you like what it is that I do, feel free to donate instead using the coffee link down below. Buy me a beer or two. But yeah, I thought I would just get out there because I know a lot of people like to listen to my videos, and that's a way that you can do it on YouTube ad-free and without a screen, which I think is really nice. So no YouTube premium needed. Anyway, let's get onto these two cameras because, oh my God, there's so many lessons to be learned here. So both of these belong to the same client of mine. He purchased both of these from eBay Japan because he wanted two very mint condition cameras. And my client paid a king's ransom for these things. So the first camera he purchased was a Polaroid SLR690. Now, I have done in-depth videos about the 690 before. It has an absolutely undeserved reputation as being one of the best Polaroids ever made. Please spread the word. Do not buy these 690s. Do not pay through the nose for them. They are absolute fucking junk. These are one of the worst things that Polaroid ever put their name to. And in a nutshell, it comes down to the fact that although this camera looks like an SLR680, like if I get my SLR680 from my workbench, right, from behind me, this is my personal SLR680, although the two cameras effectively look very similar, they look the same, they are completely different inside. Electronically, they are totally different beasts. The Japanese division at Polaroid decided, for whatever reason, not to use the original analog circuitry that the SX-70 and folding SLR series had been using for many years, and they came up with their own microprocessor-controlled digital system for controlling everything in the camera. But for unknown reasons, for completely baffling reasons known only to Polaroid Japan, which I can only speculate as to why they did this, they designed the camera in such a way that the CPU, all the electronics, if you have film in the camera, because the battery is contained in the film, remember? If you have film in the camera and you leave a pack of film in there, The camera is switched on 24/7. The electronics never get switched off. They get disabled when you collapse it. This camera doesn't collapse properly. I'll go into why that isn't the case in just a minute, but the electronics never turn off. They are powered all the time unless you take the film out. What that means is the chips and transistors are under stress 24/7 while there's film in the camera. So, you know, if you're not the kind of person that's going to insert and use up your entire pack of film within the same day that you're shooting it, you are leaving the thing turned on all the time. That puts stress on the transistors, which results in them blowing up. When they blow up, these cameras can fail in any number of spectacularly wacky ways. It just depends on which of the transistors blows, because basically all the signals that tell the camera what to do, from taking a photo to using the flash to ejecting the film, depending on which one of those transistors blows and in what order, you can quite literally get any symptom on an SLR690. They are so unreliable, and while you can replace the transistors that blow at various points within the circuitry, you can't stop it from happening again. What's to say you replace one and then the next one fails a month later? It's literally whack-a-mole. And just in general, these things were not made of very high quality components. Some of the parts are. The chassis, the plastic cogs in the gears, for example, very high quality parts. But things like the bellows, very, very flimsy compared to a folding SLR from earlier generations. Things like the leather is synthetic and vinyl. Not everything about these is good quality. Some of the parts, such as the Fresnel screen, for example, is made of an inferior plastic. It's like this silver shiny stuff. I'll show you as to how I know it's inferior in just a second when we open this thing up. But yeah, this camera, completely toast. Electronically, it's absolutely haywire. And as you can see, it doesn't collapse properly. And that's because the Fresnel screen inside this thing has snapped. And when I say it's snapped, here's a Fresnel screen. The Fresnel screen is the mirror that flaps up and down inside the camera, right? So the top is the viewfinder, and then when the mirror flaps up, there's a mirror on the other side, and that's what bounces light from the lens onto the film. Inside this camera, one of the legs has just completely snapped in half. I've basically never seen that in a camera that otherwise looks so good cosmetically. The only times I've ever seen that is in a camera that's like been destroyed, like dropped or run over. This thing looks absolutely perfect. I believe the reason that the Fresnel has snapped is because this part is spring-loaded, and since the 690 seems to be made of an inferior plastic, it's just broken itself over time. So the client contacted me and said, look, I have this 690. He paid $850 US for this thing, which doesn't work and has a cracked Fresnel screen. If I haven't made it clear enough already, stop paying so much. God, that's an insane amount of money. That's like 1,400 US Australian dollars, 850 US dollars. Like, to put that into perspective, you could have purchased like an SX-70 like Alpha. You could have sent it to me. I could have put the new PCB in, I-type modified it, and you'd still have enough money left over for like a mint flash bar. And this thing's fully refurbished and working. This is dead. 850 US dollars is bonkers. It's completely insane for a camera where the reliability is, it's never going to be reliable. One of the baffling features that I forgot to mention just before is that the 690, like the folding SLR series, is designed in such a way where at the back here, right contained down here, attached to the long panel is a little switch. And basically, if you collapse the camera, that switch cuts power. When you erect the camera, it completes the circuit and power is allowed to flow. So what that means is while an SX-70 or an SLR680 is in the collapsed position, no power gets from the batteries to any of the circuits. The 690 still has that switch. It's still wired in, but it's wired in in such a way that all it does is tell the shutter not to fire. Everything else stays turned on. Right? It's that instead of cutting power, which is literally what the switch is designed to do, instead of cutting power, it just tells the computer, oh, maybe don't fire anything. Absolutely baffling. So, like I said, $850 US for what is effectively a brick. This is a paperweight, right? It doesn't work. Even if I did get it working, even if I found through whack-a-mole what transistor or transistor array was problematic, even if I got that working, I can't offer a warranty on this, right? There's just no way I give this thing a 3 feet guarantee. Gets 3 feet away from me, that's it, your warranty's over, right? So when he reached out to me, I said, look, watch this video on the 690. The 690 is a garbage trash camera, which for some reason has this reputation of being absolutely amazing. Like, the cost of these things, $850 US, isn't even like the most I've seen these go for. Look at what Retrospect sell the 690 for. It is absolute robbery. If you are paying, like, they sell them for like thousands of dollars. It's just ridiculous. If you pay that much for a 690, you are a moron and you have rocks in your head. They are so garbage. The only reason that people pay so much is people think they're the best. But all of that is completely unfounded. A fool and their money are quickly parted. And I know I'm going to get people in the comments that say, oh, I've owned my 690 since 1992 and it still works. Congratulations, you are the exception, not the rule. Ask any technician what the worst Polaroid camera to repair is. Without a doubt, they will say the 690, for sure. Anyway, so he contacts me and I said, look, I'm not going to replace the 690 electronics. I said, but what I can do and what I've done for clients in the past, I can get an SX-70 sonar, swap some of the parts over, put the new SX-70R PCB in, and you're going to end up with a hybrid. It's going to be like a 690 body with SX-70 sonar controls. You're going to have the manual controls. You're going to have the new RPCB. It's going to look really amazing. And I showed him photos of one I'd done before for a client. And at the time, I happened to have a spare broken sonar in stock that I could pill for a few parts from. I basically had the ribbon cables and the shutter. And I said, that's all the parts that I need to make you a working camera. The rest of the sonar I got in a trade. It was completely destroyed, like someone had run over it. But the shutter and the ribbon, the parts I needed, basically, I had in stock. So he agreed to that. Well, when I received it, that's when I discovered not only did it have electrical gremlins, but the Fresnel screen was snapped in half, as I'll demonstrate soon when I pull this thing apart. So the problem is, these Fresnel screens are completely and utterly unique. No one makes new versions of these. And while I have some spares, such as this one here, if I pull my light up, can you see how marked this one is? This one came from a really oxidized and heavily corroded camera. For me to have a mint condition Fresnel screen in spare parts basically means that I need to have a mint condition SX-70, because odds are overwhelming that, well, if the Fresnel screen is in perfect condition, the rest of the camera is probably in good condition too. And if I had a good camera where everything's in good condition, I'm probably just going to restore it and sell it. Like this one, right? This is a camera that I got in a trade-in, and everything was pretty good, so I refurbished it. I'm going to be selling this soon. I'm not going to scrap a perfectly good camera for parts if I can just fix it. It's just not worth it. So that means for me to have spare Fresnel screens, I've got to take them from cameras that are worth scrapping, right? I'm not going to waste a perfectly good SX-70 just to part it out. And that means that quite often, although I do have spares, the spares that I do have are a little bit marked, a little bit scuffed. They won't affect the image, since that mirror is in good condition, but you'll see splotches and blotches in the viewfinder. Well, anyway, I told that to the client. I said, look, I can sell you a spare Fresnel. They're a little B grade, but the camera's still going to work. He wasn't interested in that because he wanted it to look cosmetically minty. He'd already paid a lot of money, so that's understandable. So I said, well, look, the next option then is you're going to have to source me another camera to pull the parts from. that's when I said, well, look, you've sent me two cameras. You've sent me an SX-70 sonar. You've sent me a 690. What I should do is combine the two cameras together and you'll get one working one. Now this SX-70 sonar he sent me had its original skin. It didn't work because the solenoid was completely fused. It had corroded and the shutter blades were stuck open. The camera would attempt to cycle, but since the shutter wouldn't function, all the photos came out blank and white. This camera also showed signs that it had just been on display for a long period of time, like it was a shelf queen, pretty much. Again, it came from Japan and my client paid a small fortune because it was in nice cosmetic condition. It even had the little Japanese sticker that they put on the top. You can always tell an SX-70 sonars from Japan because they'll have that little gold oval-shaped quality control sticker. So I said, look, the best thing for me to do right now, because you've given me a minty camera that doesn't work. The body's great, doesn't work. This one, the body has serious damage and it doesn't work. I said, honestly, the best option, let me combine the two. I was going to turn your 690 into a sonar anyway. I might as well combine the two. So the client goes, well, I've already invested too much money into the 690. Please just reassemble it for me. Like, I've already disassembled this guy's camera, right? I've had it in pieces. He goes, well, please just reassemble it for me and send it back as is. Now, my policy, like, if I can't fix something, I don't charge for it. But, I mean, that's annoying for me. I've already sunk quite a bit of time into diagnosing this thing, only for my client to then change their mind. But, fair enough. So I put it to the side. And I turned my attention on this thing. Now, this thing, as I said, had a completely seized solenoid, so I needed to take apart another camera to get a solenoid from to fix this guy's camera. I also had to de-skin it because he wanted to change it to tan skin, despite the fact that the skin on it was in immaculate condition anyway, although it was starting to lift. Like, the skin had sort of dried out and was starting to lift and peel up, so it really needed to be glued back down. But I de-skinned it. It turned out to be very difficult to de-skin. The adhesive had just turned so hard and crusty over time. It took me quite a while to de-skin this thing carefully. Anyway, after getting this thing to work, after installing the new SX-70R PCB, after recalibrating the focus since it wasn't set properly from the factory, after all that, after cleaning the Fresnel to the best of my human ability, because my client's adamant on having the most mint condition cameras possible, I finally finished the thing, only to figure out that it has an intermittent issue. And unfortunately, the issue is due to the bellows. And basically what is happening on this camera is the bellows, very likely because this camera has been on display in some camera shop in Japan for many years, the UV has started to shrink the bellows towards the rear. And what's happening is as the mirror flips up, it goes up and then it's spring-loaded, so the mirror slowly lowers. Well, what's happening is the edges of the Fresnel are getting caught on the inside parts of the bellows. So as the Fresnel screen's coming down, it's getting stuck, right? So it's going all the way down and it gets stuck right at the bottom. And if you kind of jiggle it, then it collapses and the mirror goes down all the way. But because it gets stuck every now and again, that leaks light onto the film and causes these V-shaped light leaks because the Fresnel isn't all the way down. The shutter blade's open and it leaks light onto the film. I have tried 6 ways from Sunday to fix this. I've tried altering the geometry a dozen different times. I've tried everything possible. The Fresnel itself isn't the issue. The spring-loaded baffle isn't the issue. The springs are not the issue because if I strip the entire top part off the camera, the Fresnel goes up and down completely fine. I've lubricated everything. The only way I am going to fix this thing's Fresnel issue is to swap the bellows. And unfortunately, because in the late 1970s, Polaroid decided to start cost-reducing everything, the bellows on an SX-70 sonar are riveted in place. So first of all, I have to drill out rivets if I'm going to swap the bellows out. But the second thing is, I'm back to needing a spare camera to pilfer the bellows from, or I'm going to have to charge for it. The worst part about all this is the only logical conclusion left over is we go back to my original idea, which I wanted to do from the very start. And that is to combine both cameras into one working unit, as I suggested from the start. But since my client didn't want to, because they thought for some reason that if they stuck this broken piece of shit on eBay, that someone would, I don't know, want to spend hundreds of dollars so they could recoup some money, only to then have to spend that money on another camera because my client wants, ultimately, 2 cameras. It just doesn't make any sense. I should have put my foot down and gone, no, what you're considering doesn't make any sense. Because basically what this is involved, by the time I combine this, I will have disassembled 5 cameras and reassembled 3? I've already disassembled and reassembled this. I've already disassembled and reassembled this. I'm gonna have to disassemble this and this again. Then I'm gonna have to combine the parts, build up a sonar again. And meanwhile, I also had to disassemble a Model 1, like a standard camera, admittedly a broken one, so that I could steal the solenoid. Whereas, if I hadn't have done that, I would have just pilfered the good solenoid from this 690. Now, where I'm trying to go with all this is I think that I learned a lesson in that as a technician who's got a lot of experience with fixing these things, I should have just put my foot down and said, dude, what you're thinking, it doesn't make any sense. Why you want this thing back and intact to try and sell it broken for parts? He's never going to recoup his $850 US. Maybe he'll get half of that for something that's known broken with a dodgy Fresnel. Unless this client rips someone off and, says, oh yeah, it works fine, right? The money you would get for selling this for parts is not going to be, it's going to be equivalent to just buying another camera anyway. And if you're going to have to buy another camera anyway because you want 2 cameras, then I might as well use the camera that I know is broken and needs parts and combine these 2 together. Because all this has done is quite literally waste 2 entire days of my time troubleshooting, rebuilding over and over again to try and get this thing working, only to have to do what I wanted to do in the very first place. So I'm sorry if I sound angry. I really needed to vent. I have, by the way, cleared this with my client because I got so angry. And I said, look, I'm going to do a video on this because I think everyone needs to learn a lesson here, including myself, but certainly my client, who spent way too much money because he got tricked into thinking that this camera was going to be the best of the best. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the concept of trying to find these mint condition SX-70s. There's an old joke in mechanics, like car mechanics, where people you can insert any car brand that you like that's jokingly referred to as unreliable, like a Lada or a Fiat or some kind of high-end sports car which is unreliable, like a Lancia or something like that. Often French cars get mocked, but substitute in whatever car brand that you want. But the joke is often like, oh wow, look at this, Lancia sports car. It's got such low mileage and it's in such great condition. And the other mechanic goes, well, of course it does. It never runs. Because it's so unreliable that they can never get it started to actually drive it anywhere, right? Polaroid cameras are kind of the same. There's really 2 kinds of cameras that I get the most worried about as a technician. The first is a camera that's really rusty and beat up and physically smashed. Those are hard to fix. The second one, though, is the camera that's in perfect cosmetic condition. Because I start to get really worried about why it's in such good condition. And oftentimes, it's because the things never worked properly from the factory, or had to get fixed a few times, and ultimately the owner just gave up on the damn thing. Seriously. I encounter this so often, that the cameras that are in like the mintiest cosmetic condition often require the same amount, if not more work to refurbish than just a gently, normally used one. And there's this, the other thing I wanted to touch on is like my client went out of their way to buy cameras from Japan because Japanese eBay and Japanese camera sellers are seen as this like mecca. And like, there's this weird like, I don't know, would you call it like a positive form of racism? Like there's this weird like positive cultural thing that we like consider the Japanese to be like these like very strange people that like they wear white gloves when they operate their cameras and they're obsessed with photography and they keep everything in perfect condition. That's true to a certain extent. Like photography is a very big hobby in Japan, and it's because a lot of the biggest players in the photography manufacturing game are from Japan. Canon, Nikon, Pentax, Mamiya, Olympus. You name it, they probably were from Japan. Polaroid was an American company, and quite famously, any of the Japanese-made Polaroid cameras tended to be problematic. Like the Polaroid 180, as good as it was, made of inferior materials compared to like a Polaroid 250 automatic land camera. The 690, considered amazing, absolute garbage compared to the American version. Polaroid Japan isn't that great. But additionally, Polaroid cameras were never really that big in Japan. I mean, they had Fuji instant cameras for the longest time. But I've been to Japan. I went there last April. And Polaroid cameras over there are just kind of seen as like toys. Like, people don't really take them that seriously. And I don't think it's a good place to buy used cameras. Well, particularly Polaroid, because I tended to find in stores that the price was elevated quite high for the quality that you would get. And I find because a lot of them are seen as like toys, a lot of them just get left on display for years and years and years, and it causes the bellows to shrink. Because I wanted to try and make a video when I visited there last April. I thought, oh, it would be really cool and tax deductible if I could buy a Polaroid camera, take it back and refurbish it. And man, all the cameras that I kept finding in stores were so broken that I was like, I'd rather just go on eBay and just get one locally. It's going to be in better condition. So what I'm trying to say is, while the Japanese have a good reputation, from my experience, the quality of stuff you're getting from eBay in Japan is honest to God no better or worse than buying from anywhere else. Because, like, I've owned a lot of film cameras over the years, and I gotta say that my experience from buying from Japan has been pretty hit or miss. I bought my Leica M5 from Japan. That arrived, they said it was in good condition. It arrived with sticky frame lines and a rangefinder that wasn't calibrated. Now, the seller was good enough to give me a discount, but that was one issue. I bought a Fuji GA645, mint condition. Shutter didn't fire. I've bought Mamiya C-series lenses and shutters, filled with fungus or not working, not as described. I have bought a few good things from Japan, but honestly, I've had just as much success with old estate barn finds that were going for very cheap, that I could just look through the photos and go, it looks like these people have taken good care of their gear. I haven't had this like mythical Japanese camera buying experience that everyone talks about. And I feel like so many people pay a premium for like the guise of like buying something from Japan. Most of the time you're purchasing a camera which probably cosmetically looks quite nice. But unless that thing also comes with a certificate of being serviced and test photos, like, they're just, like, Japanese are just people. They're just humans. They're like you and me. They're not gods. So, yeah, I wanted to have a bit of a rant about that because I see that all the time, and it's just, like, I don't think it's warranted, Like, they're just people. Like, do you know what? in all my years of buying cameras online, do you know where I've had the most success purchasing cameras? From the former Soviet Union. I went through a big phase of buying like Russian cameras, Zorkis and Zenits and Lubitels, and like, because they're really great to learn from. Like if you want to take one apart and rebuild it. So I would often buy ones that were advertised as broken and learn how to fix them. But I also bought a lot of really good working ones. And every camera that I purchased as being working condition was flawless. I have like 100% success rate with buying from the former Soviet Union. Like, yeah, just crazy. Whereas Japan, I was often disappointed because I was paying a premium and getting something which I didn't think was up to scratch. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, but yeah, I see it all the time. Clients that buy Polaroids from Japan, I often have to do so much extra work. Now, the one other buyer tip that I'll give on that kind of subject, if you purchase a Polaroid camera and it has this sticker, let's see if I can get the camera to focus. Can you guys see that sticker? It says, use SX-70 film and flash bar. For assistance, call this toll-free number in Massachusetts. This sticker was installed on cameras that were returned to the Polaroid factory for warranty jobs. So if you see this sticker on your camera, this was not a stock sticker. This was a sticker installed if the camera had been returned to the factory. Now, from my experience, I tend to find cameras with these stickers have more problems. Despite the fact they should have already been sent back to be repaired, my experience, honestly, is that the quality control of, like, I know it's very topical at the moment with one certain US president wanting manufacturing to return to America, but the quality control I see from these American factory refurbs is a dice roll. It's genuine, like, Soviet Union grade quality control. It is, like, some of the stuff I see on these factory refurbished cameras is abysmal. But also, I tend to find that, yeah, when they have these stickers, they tend to be a lot more problematic because I tend to find that when they went back to the factory, the repairs are only sort of done as needed, and a lot of times they miss secondary issues. So that really has nothing to do with anything else I wanted to cover today, but I thought that it was worth mentioning. I do want to eventually do like an SX-70 buyer's guide, but I think that this should hopefully form a bit of a good start. So anyway, what I am going to do now is what I wanted to do and actually build a nice working camera out of all of these spare parts. I'm going to combine both of them together. I'm just going to get myself a little spare box to keep bits and pieces in because the screws on the SLR690 are unique and I don't want to lose them because these things use little Phillips head screwdrivers, Japanese international standard. Generally a Phillips head screwdriver works fine, but I absolutely need to reuse these screws. But yeah, so if you're wondering why I didn't post a video last week and why I've been a little quieter on social media and why I've had to reach out to clients and say, hey, sorry guys, I'm going to be a bit delayed with fixing your camera, it's because I've had to deal with stuff like this. I'm literally, like, taking apart cameras. This is going to be the 4th and 5th time I've had to do this on a single client job. Because the Japanese just cannot make a Polaroid camera to save their life, as good as their reputation is. And because this camera is just so rubbish that, you know, it's effectively unreliable junk. But yeah, the fact that I'm having to to go to all this effort and redo, because I genuinely, I'm so mad at myself for not just putting my foot down and saying, no, that's a stupid idea. Let's combine the two cameras. You're going to get a better deal. Because none of it makes sense. Now, I will be sending this client back the shutter from this camera, which I'm not going to use any of the parts off now. It's all going to be intact. So he will be able to sell that. So I don't know, for anyone that's going to be looking for an SLR690 shutter, good luck. Like, you can use it if you want to. But yeah, there is, like, I'm so sick of people like that. Because what's annoying, these people spend so much money on buying these cameras thinking they're cosmetically perfect, only for the camera to have more issues than if they just, you know, taken a gamble on the average eBay listing. And then they're like not inclined to have the thing repaired because they think they've already spent so much money. It's like this sunk cost fallacy nonsense. Whereas in reality, I should have gone, no, it's going to be more cost effective if we just combine the two things together. It's going to save money, it's going to save time. And the other thing is, like, I don't know why you went to the effort of getting this mint condition SX-70 sonar. The leather needs to be removed anyway. There's literally no point. Like, he wanted this reskinned in tan, but for this camera, again, the leather has to be removed. Now, fortunately, the 690, it's actually pretty trivial to remove the leather. It does come off pretty easy, but it's synthetic. Like, it deforms when you take it off. It never quite goes on looking exactly the same. So I'm going to have to replace the leather anyway. Thus, really, what was the point of having it in such good cosmetic condition? You know, like, I get wanting something that looks nice, but at the end of the day, you really can't put an SX-70 on display in the erect position. I've spoken about this in videos before. Because when you have an SX-70 on display, it deforms the bellows and causes the circuitry to become powered up, which is bad for the camera's overall lifespan. So it's just such a bad idea. So is there really a point to having a camera that's in such nice condition? I don't think so. Anyway, I was ready to smash these things with a hammer the other day. I'm so fed up. There's nothing worse than just having to redo the same job, stare at the same damn cameras over and over and over and over and over again. And look, to play devil's advocate, the weird intermittent issue that this thing has, like, I've spoken to some other techs. I got so desperate, I reached out to some of my other technician friends, and they all said the same thing. They're like, no, that can't be fixed. It needs either a new body or a new bellows panel. And literally, it would be easier to just swap the entire body of the camera than just swap the bellows. There was really nothing that I was going to be able to do to fix that. And to be fair, because that's such a small and seemingly insignificant, like, intermittent issue, that wasn't something I would have noticed straight away. But it is still the case that had I just been able to combine the parts to begin with, I would have been able to avoid all that stuff. All right. Now I'm going to show you guys the damage. See what I mean? The Fresnel assembly is made out of this weird, like, silver-coated material, and you guys can see the spring-loaded part has completely snapped. And, like, the plastic just feels cheap that these Fresnel assemblies are made out of. The mirror is great quality. The actual Fresnel itself is great quality. But this part has snapped, and since this is spring-loaded and under high tension, there's no way I can fix that. It needs to be replaced. There's no amount of glue in the world that will hold that for any reasonable period of time. The second that thing gets glued, it's just going to snap again. But yeah, this is the only case, I mean, yeah, like look, the plastic these are made out of, it just, like it's so shiny. It feels so cheap compared to the earlier ones, which are like this nice matte finish. But yeah, there's no way I can fix that. It's like so thin and so cracked, and it's under such an amount of tension. I have yeah, I've really, like in regular SX-70s, the only time I've ever seen these little pieces get snapped is if the camera itself has been like destroyed somehow, like run over by a car or crushed or stepped on. But yeah, it's all that part. Useless. So I'm going to have to get rid of that. Put that over to the side there. Put the springs here. Now, fortunately, I've already had all this open. Everything else in this thing is in very, very good condition. Like here's that baffle that I had to check. The motor and stuff is good. I'm just going to put the bellows on because one of the things I'm going to need to do is desolder all the ribbon cable. This ribbon cable is going to be swapped out for the one on the sonar, and that's because the 690 ribbon cable is just simply not compatible. It's completely different. Alright, let's just untangle my soldering iron here. And yeah, I think I don't know, maybe I'll do like a montage from this point forwards. Maybe I'll pause and separate the camera into 2 files, and we'll do a high-speed montage of the rest of this repair.
And now, a compact, folding, electronically controlled, motor-driven, single-lens, reflex camera. And now, a compact, folding, electronically controlled, motor-driven, single-lens, reflex camera.
Hold your left hand out. Place the camera across the palm. Grasp the rear of the viewfinder cap. Pull the camera into its erect position. Press and the door opens. Take the 10-picture film pack and push it all the way in. Close the door and automatically the cover sheet will be ejected from the camera.
And now, a compact, folding, electronically controlled, motor-driven, single-lens, reflex camera. And now, a compact, folding, electronically controlled, motor-driven, single-lens, reflex camera.
Now rest the camera against your chin. Bring your eye to the viewing lens. Place your thumb on the back of the lens board and your finger on the focusing wheel. Rolling left or right, bring the scene into sharp focus from infinity down to 10 inches. When the correct moment comes, press the red electric shutter button until the film is out. Holding the camera steady, select, focus, shoot.
And now, a compact, folding, electronically controlled, motor-driven, single-lens reflex camera, capable of focusing from infinity down to 10 inches, developed to exploit integral self-processing film units, which when exposed are automatically ejected from the camera with no parts to peel or discard, and whose final images emerge without timing in daylight, where the viewer can see them materialize within the same transparent, protective plastic cover through which the film was originally exposed.
To adapt the 690 body to become either an SLR680 or an SX-70 sonar, we've got to take one extra step, and that is to replace the switch. Because the switch in a 690 works the opposite direction. Instead of opening, it closes when the RAM goes forwards. So we're going to remove the old switch and replace it with this one. Now, the notch in the RAM is slightly shorter, so I've bent the black bit of plastic backwards so that it contacts. Once we've got this switch replaced, we should be able to just install the new ribbon cable.
Single lens SX-70, reflex SX-70 camera. And now, SX-70, a compact SX-70, folding SX-70, electronically controlled, motor-driven SX-70, single lens SX-70, reflex SX-70 camera.
All right, I'm going to pause it there and reassemble the rest of the camera now. All the ribbon cables are swapped over, and this 690 body has effectively been converted into an SX-70 sonar body. I'm going to beep test those switches using my multimeter, making sure that they are on, off, 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 off. And yeah, because they should do the same thing depending on the position of the RAM. They're either both going to be on or they're both going to be off, and that's how you know the switches work. So I'm going to test that out, and I'll return with a reassembled camera. All right, there we go. The camera I wanted to build in the first place, a hybrid of original 1970s SX-70 sonar, the late 90s, possibly early 2000s body of the SLR690, and of course the modern SX-70R PCB for all of the 21st century features that we like, including Bluetooth manual control. I even re-glued the little quality control sticker back onto the top. So I would say this thing is probably the most Japanese SX-70 that money can buy, really. So what do we take away from this video? Well, a lot of lessons learned here. Number one, the SLR690 series were, and currently still are, complete junk. Not only are they unreliable, but they are, well, they're not entirely built of inferior quality parts, but some of the parts that make up their construction are very low quality and just prone to breaking, such as the ribbon cables, such as the Fresnel assembly, and of course, such as the reliance on transistors that make up the electronics inside the original camera shutter. Number two, do not overpay for SX-70s just because they look like they are in good cosmetic condition. And don't be suckered into paying more just because a camera's from Japan. Just because someone handles a camera with white gloves does not mean that it's going to take amazing photos. The client of mine sent me both listings, actually, and both cameras were described as tested and working, which, as far as I can tell, their testing just involved putting an empty pack of film in and clicking a button a few times. There was no way in hell, for example, that this sonar shutter was working at all, because the solenoid had oxidized to the point where it was literally fused and the blades were stuck open. There's no way that camera ever could have worked. So yeah, don't just assume that because you're buying from Japan that you're going to get something absolutely amazing. Everyone can make mistakes, right? But yeah, stop overpaying for cameras. I've said it so many times. The folding SLR series are they were notoriously unreliable at the best of times, let alone being 50 years old. They all need a service by now. So if you are buying one with the intent of, you know, upgrading it, souping it up, using it, there's really no point in paying the extra for something with nice cosmetics, because most of the cosmetics, to be honest, are the leather, and that's probably going to end up replaced anyway, especially on a camera such as this, which has its synthetic original leather. And then a lesson learned for me, and that is that, you know, if I encounter a client where I think they're making a poor choice, I'm going to have to put my foot down a little bit more, because going back and running the numbers and doing the math, not combining both cameras was a terrible decision on my part and only involved wasting my time. Not only did I end up wasting packs of film in testing and discovering that intermittent mirror issue, but it wasted time because I had to disassemble and reassemble the cameras several times. Whereas if I had just been allowed to do what I wanted to do, I would have been finished 2 days ago. So unfortunately, that's meant that I've lost a lot of money in terms of, you know, sinking in time to something that I'm not getting paid for, because I'm not gonna charge my client for the cost of refurbishing 5 cameras, which is basically what I've done. It means that I wasted a lot of time that I could have spent on other clients' cameras, both earning money for myself, but also just getting rid of the massive piles of client repairs that I have in this workshop. You know, it takes me pretty much a good solid day to do just a single camera, but starting from, you know, stripping it down and rebuilding it, testing, calibrating, especially if I've got to do I-type conversions and stuff, which this one doesn't have. It's why I haven't put the bottom leather panel on yet, just in case I need to test it using a external battery pack, such as this modified reservoir adapter that I use. But yeah, a lot of lessons learned for everyone. Now, what I'll probably do after this video is, and eventually in the future, I want to do like a SX-70 buyer's guide, just giving my top tips of what to actually look for when it comes to tracking down one of these cameras, because I cannot stand watching people get ripped off. I did the math, and this particular client of mine spent 1,600 Australian dollars on what was basically junk, which is an absolutely crazy amount of money. I mean, for that sum of money, you could have purchased like well, I mean, not that I sell cameras very often, but on the off chance that I did have one for sale, like, you could have purchased a fully upgraded camera from me and had money left over for several packs of film and a mint flash bar. Like, it's way too much money to have spent on this. Now, ultimately, in the end, we ended up with a really nice, great working camera. I know the shutter works flawlessly. We know that after fitting all the body ribbons and stuff and doing the mods, this actual body of the camera works flawlessly. And the truth is that the client has ended up with a camera that is very, very unique. Having a hybrid like this is certainly going to make this thing one of a kind. Especially when you consider the little Japanese sticker and it's a Japanese body and, you know, etc., etc. But yeah, just no good, man. Very frustrating when stuff like this happens, so thank you for sitting down and allowing me to vent, because boy did this thing get me very, very angry. I ended up spending quite a lot of time on this thing as well, just adjusting how it was to open and close, because the original 690 was just so stiff and garbage. The clasps were just very poorly adjusted from the factory and gripping way too firmly. It's much nicer to open and close now. But yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to say. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed more of like a podcast type episode. There's not really going to be any edits other than me just speeding up some of the footage. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll be back with normal schedule resumed, maybe next week or something like that. And I'm going to spend tomorrow returning to the mountains of other clients' work, now that I can stop wasting time on this thing. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next episode. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Oh, actually, false alarm. Before I go, I did want to mention, in regards to the SLR690, it is theoretically possible for someone like Yongmin from the SX-70R project to come up with new electronics to replace the unreliable parts. But I want to just show what would be involved. Although it's not impossible, very likely what would need to happen is a new PCB for the actual shutter, probably a new PCB for the sonar assembly, unless Yongmin can find out a way to make the two talk together, and certainly a new set of ribbon cables that actually take advantage of the built-in power switch in the chassis. Because in its current form, if we just modified and replaced the electronics with something slightly more reliable, we're still going to ultimately have that issue in that, well, power is just constantly being fed to the camera, which is just no good. We just can't have that happening. So, although it would technically be possible to replace a lot of the electronics on the 690, it would end up being way more involved than currently what the SX-70R conversion is. I mean, currently to convert a camera to the SX-70R PCB, it's just replacing one circuit board. Very likely, if we had to do the same thing with a 690, not only would we have to replace one PCB, we may have to replace two, and probably we'd need to invent new ribbon cables to install as well. So it would be a much bigger job. Anyway, now I'm finished. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.